Hey everybody, thanks for tuning back into OTRAM's YouTube channel for another Tuesday Cruiser Chat. Hopefully the new 6 o'clock time works better for people and lets more people join in. Do it from home now, run home and get a shower before popping on here. Hopefully you guys can hear me and everything's working right. It's a new laptop. New camera, since I'm doing it from home instead of doing it at the shop. So yeah, hopefully this all works. If it does, just let me know. Same as the other cruiser chats. No real format, just ask your cruiser questions and I will answer them if I can. Yeah, we've had a busy week at the shop since last week. We started prototyping the stainless steel exhaust for the early 80s. I've got one most of the way tacked up, so it's coming along fairly well. Got a new sandblast cabinet delivered today. We've started doing a lot more like drivetrain rebuilds, and we've got a big automatic parts washer, and it gets all the parts nice and clean, but it doesn't get all the oxidation and the old scale and everything off. So we got a media blast cabinet so we can start cleaning the cases up so they look like brand new. So they're new looking on the outside and nice and new on the inside. So yeah, trying to think if we've got anything else going on. We've got our new office manager, Tim. He's been with us a couple of weeks now. So if you email us, I've pretty much handed email over to Tim, but we've only got him part-time. So you may see a couple of day lag between when you get responses on emails. I'm still monitoring it, in case anything that needs an immediate response comes through. But in an effort to try to keep me in the shop and up productivity, I've handed off most of the email estimating, scheduling, all that stuff to Tim, since I'm terrible at doing it. But yeah, trying to think of anything else. That's all I can think of at the moment. So yeah, whatever questions you guys have, just ask away. And we're hoping that the hurricane doesn't come as far inland as to get us. We're pretty far in from the coast. But if it does, we may not have cruiser chat next Tuesday, depending on whether or not we lose power here or at the shop. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. Hopefully it's not a problem, but just in case. Oh, and this week we're doing chat from the house, so you may hear the dogs clicking around behind me. They think it's dinner time, even though they've still got an hour to go. But yeah, you may hear them bark or run around or just be crazy because they don't understand that I'm trying to do something on the computer. Isn't that right? Yeah. Yeah, since I decided to move it to 6 to see if more people could tune in, um, I did it from home. I got a new laptop last weekend and got it all set up. So hopefully we can do this from home. No haircut. Just had time to get a shower before Cruiser Chat this time, so my hair is still wet. It was actually nice to be able to come home, get cleaned up, and then do Cruiser Chat without having Cruiser grime all over me. And my wife told me I needed to clean my office before I did Cruiser Chat here. So hopefully you guys can't see too much of it. Luckily, you can't see my desk. And hopefully it's actually streaming out better than it looks here. It keeps like lagging and freezing on my computer. And I'm hoping it's just this computer and it's not actually doing that out in the real world. When I'm at the shop, the shop computer's hardwired to the router. Here at the house, I'm on Wi-Fi because the new laptop doesn't have Ethernet ports. What are they? I don't recall having seen the spring gauge in anything on 100 series. Oh, it's probably for resetting the wheel bearings. Um, yeah, the older manuals show it that way too. I've never actually used the spring gauge to set wheel bearings. We just we put the wheel bearings in, uh, tighten the inner lock nut, good and tight, like 50 foot-pounds. Spin the hub both directions to get the grease seated, and then we back that nut off and then thread it back in, just finger tight, and then an eighth to a quarter of a turn past finger tight. Usually it ends up around an eighth. It's one of those things you've kind of got to feel, which is probably why Toyota specs using the spring gauge. That's not the way I learned to do wheel bearings, so I've never done it that way. If you've got the feel for wheel bearings, it's the same as setting up any of them. The knuckle reassembly video on our channel shows shows resetting the wheel bearings. It's on a 40, maybe that was on a 60. I think it was on a 60 series. Either way, same bearings, same idea. You'll probably want to get new Star lock washers. We've had a lot of them when if you try to go to reuse them, the little center tab breaks out of them. All the hardware stores around here sell them, but they're in the sporting goods department, like fishing scales. Will read the same. And you could probably use a luggage scale too, depending on how high the luggage scale goes, but I'd imagine it goes high enough. Yeah, I doubt you'll easily find an actual automotive one. When we're doing knuckle bearings, we use a fish scale. And even then, I only use the fish scale on knuckle bearings when I'm doing a disc or a drum to disc brake swap and I don't have a baseline on shims. I use the fish scale to do the shim baseline. The rest of the time, we just do it by feel because we've done so many of them. You know if it's right or wrong. Yeah, my spring scale gets taken out once, maybe twice a year. It's not something we use a lot. Sorry, the dogs are going crazy in the kitchen, and it's kind of distracting. They don't understand why I'm not giving them constant attention. Um, it's not a terrible job. Crash is working on, he's doing upper control arms, CVs, tie rod ends, and brake pads and rotors on 100 series. He started on it today, and he got through one side, uh, putting it all together this afternoon. We got held up this morning because we were waiting on the freight delivery of the new blast cabinet. So we were trying to leave a bay open so we could get the cabinet through the shop. So we had to wait for that. But if you're really hustling, you could do it. You could do it in a day. Um, you know, on a lift, with everything there ready and everything going well, we could knock it out in a couple hours. It never goes well. The one Crash was working on today was pretty rusty, so he was fighting fasteners for the better part of the afternoon. If you take the knuckle spindle all the way off, be really careful when you take the ABS sensor out of its bore in the wheel bearing. It's real easy to break them when you pull them out, but you kind of want to pull them out so that you can set the whole knuckle off to the side and not worry about breaking the ABS wire. I find it much easier to do the CV if I just, undo the upper and lower control arms at the ball joints and take the whole knuckle off. It gives you a lot more room, and you're not fighting, trying to swing the knuckle out of the way while you're trying to get the CV in and out of the differential. And I'd recommend doing the axle seals at the differential while you've got the CVs out. Yeah, my wife decided she was tired of the beard and got me an electric razor thing a couple of weeks ago. I'm still not doing real well with shaving every day, but we're working on it. I also took my glasses off for this chat. For some reason, the lighting here was making a weird glare off my glasses. So I can't see anything, but hopefully you guys do. On a 100 series, it doesn't have rear hubs like you had in the old 80 series. They're closer in design to like the mini truck, where the backing plate goes onto the axle shaft, and then there's a retainer, and the wheel bearing gets pressed all the way down the shaft with a press-on retainer and an ABS ring, and then another retainer. They're pretty terrible when you have to change the bearing. The interaxle seal will go on those, and it'll leak gear oil into the wheel bearing that's supposed to be sealed. And by the time you see gear oil get all the way to the outside and down on the brakes, you've already wiped out the bearing because it's washed all the grease out. It's not a fun job. It takes a special press adapter to press the axle shaft out of the bearings. If you're real lucky, you can knock them loose with some careful beating on the ground, but it's not the way I would suggest doing it. I bought the press adapter a couple of years ago, and then the little press we had at the shop wasn't big enough to use it. So when I built the new press a couple of months ago, I made sure to design it and make it big enough to be able to get the axle tool in. On the 100 series, it depends. It depends on what part of the system you've had open. If you haven't had the ABS lines and that off, sometimes you can get away. I've never tried vacuum bleeding them, but we pressure bleed them, and I've gotten away without having to do the ABS activation. But I've only gotten away with it once, and that was on a newer truck. Most of them, you've got to use the scan tool to bleed the ABS actuator, and then if the reservoir has gone all the way empty, there's a lot of steps in the manual to bleed the accumulator out, the accumulator and the accumulator pump. So I guess, long story short, most of the time you need the scan tool to do it, at least to do it properly. We got away with it a couple of weeks ago on one. For some reason, it didn't want to activate with the scan tool, so we just bled it like a normal truck, and it was fine. But while we were doing brake lines on that one, we kept all the lines capped, so it never went completely empty and got air through the ABS accumulator, or the ABS activator and accumulator. So I guess if you're really, really lucky, maybe you could do it without it. But most of the time, it takes the actual scan tool. And it's weird. We've got TechStream, which is the current Toyota scan tool, and we've got the old, I can't even think of what it's called. It's the old Hantel MasterTech. The MasterTech seems easier to use when bleeding 100 series brakes than the TechStream does, but they're really hard to find. I got ours off of eBay, and we've got a Snap-on scan tool that's really hit and miss on doing cruiser brake bleeding. It's also like 4 years out of date for updates, because we don't use it often enough to justify $1,000 a year in updating it. It does most of the quickie stuff I ask it to do. But yeah, bleeding 100 series brakes isn't particularly fun. Hi, Trevor. Hi. Can you guys calm down? It's not dinner time yet. It's not dinner time yet. You need to calm down. Yeah, and I don't know if it's just because we see particularly crusty 100 series. It's just, yeah, like the AHC is not fun to replace or to go through. The brakes aren't particularly fun. It's yeah, there's just a lot of stuff and then like the 05 and up when they switched to the 5-speed. Even changing transmission fluid got harder on those. They took away the dipstick. So yeah, I'm not a super fan of 100 series maintenance. If you've got the wheel hubs off, the rotors unbolt from the back of the wheel flange, you'll probably have to use a hammer or a mallet to knock the wheel hub out of the rotor. They get crusty and seized together. Just clean up the mating surface on the hub real well, and then the rotor drops on, bolts up, and you're good to go. And you're going to have to expand the pistons back in the caliper to get the new pads in, because as you know, the pads wear, the pistons come out, it gets narrower. You can do it with a C-clamp and a block of wood. There's a couple of different, like you can buy brake caliper spreader tools, and those are a lot better option because they drive the pistons back straight. A lot of times if you try to do it with a C-clamp or a pry bar or something like that, you'll cock one of the caliper pistons and it'll get stuck in the bore, which is no fun. So we've got, I think ours is a Lang Tools, and it's like 2 threaded rods in the center that are threaded backwards of each other with a ratcheting lever. And as you ratchet it, it spreads 2 plates apart that push the rotors back, or the calipers back. And when you put the new rotors on, make sure you torque them evenly in a crisscross pattern like you would when you're torquing your wheels back on, because the same thing, you can warp the new rotors if you torque them crooked. We do carry Terrain Tamer. I actually had an online store on our website, but more often than not, all we were getting was like fraudulent orders with stolen credit cards. And it was a pain to try to sort them out all the time. So we took the online store down. I've actually got like $1,500 in Terrain Tamer coming at the end of the week for a bunch of different jobs. So we get it through Cruiser Brothers out in California. George and Ward are awesome to deal with. The parts are awesome. So yeah, we order them a lot and use them in the shop. We can sell them, mail them out, whatever. We don't generally keep a ton of stock at the shop, just because the shop is so small, we don't have a lot of storage space. I'm hoping in a couple of months when we take over the other side, we'll actually have room to stock, a ton of knuckle kits and, transmission and transfer case rebuild kits, diff kits, all that stuff. So there's not the lag time of having to order it for each job or remembering to order it before the trucks come in for jobs. But yeah, technically we are set up as a reseller for Terrain Tamer. We just don't really advertise it because we don't keep a ton in stock. I can always order it and have it drop shipped. But at that point, you could order it and just have it shipped, straight from Cruiser Brothers. So yeah, that's a really long explanation. We are a reseller for them. I love their parts and I love the customer service from Cruiser Brothers. We just took down the online store. And they're bringing in, like, it seems like more and more different product each month. It seems like every time I call them, the Terrain Tamer line is expanded some, and they're bringing in the long range gas tanks now. And I've done a couple of theirs on an 80, and they're nice. And we're doing a 200 series one next month. And then, the high and low range TK skiers for the 80 and 100. Super nice, super easy to install. Yeah, I love dealing with Cruiser Brothers. And they're on the ball about getting parts out. Yeah, the LRA tanks, at least I haven't done a main 80 tank, but I've done the auxiliary 80. And I've done the long range and I've done the factory conversion, and the long range was way easier. I don't have a cruiser to install a long range tank in. I guess the last one I did was about a year ago. We've got a 200 series one to do in October. My Forerunners just got a 20-gallon fuel cell out back because I cut it up enough that there's no factory gas tank for it anymore. So we run that. Were I to get a Shop 80, I would definitely put one in. And unfortunately, the last one we did was before we started doing YouTube videos. Otherwise, I would have shot video of the install. But it is way easier than doing the factory auxiliary tank. And I really like the way they do the fuel gauge in the dash. We're set up with quite a few different vendors for getting parts. We can get pretty much anything out there. I just don't have the time for doing an online store and setting it all up. Web design and that is not my thing. Stock 62 fuel tanks are getting rare. They've all succumbed to rust, at least up here. They're gross looking inside. So yeah, it'll probably be worth money if it's in decent shape. So you're doing the long range automotive in a 62? If so, that should be a cool install. I have not done one in 62 yet, or seen one done in a 62. We don't seem to get that many 62s through the shop. We've got 162 down there right now, and a couple of 60s. New with me in the shop. We got our new blast cabinet this morning. We've been doing a lot more transfer case and transmission and stuff rebuilds. And our automatic parts washer gets everything nice and squeaky clean, but it wasn't taking the oxidation and the road grime, like the staining off of the aluminum cases. So we got a big blast cabinet this morning, so we can start making the cases on the outside look as good as they do on the inside when we're done. What else is new? I got a new welding helmet yesterday. Got one of the Optrel Panoramics. Man, I used it today to weld some stainless exhaust, and I absolutely love the thing. And I'd have my other welding helmet is an Optrel Vega View. And when I bought that like a year ago, I was like, wow, this is the greatest welding helmet ever. The Panoramics blows it out of the water. My eyes felt so much better after welding with the new helmet today. It was awesome. Oh, probably, yeah, I'm going brain dead. The tank hanger. There's like a plate that bolts into the top, and then it drops down and hooks over sideways. So you probably got to extend that for extra depth. Make sure you air the bracket out real well before welding. And don't weld anywhere near the open gas tank. We had a shop here in town that somebody dropped an old-fashioned drop light while they were doing fuel pump, and it was like a 2-story cinder block building, and the building is gone. It just exploded. So yeah, be real careful. Top-notch wiring shop. I don't know. I don't know the Red Arc system. I've done a couple of the Blue Sea. I can't remember what it's called. It's like the magnetic actuating relay for the dual battery kits. I've done those, um, and they seem to work well. It's a very disconcerting clunk when they latch, uh, but they seem to work well. I've done a couple of the IBS, the Swiss Intelligent Battery System, I think is what it is. I've done a couple of those. I like those. They seem pretty foolproof and they're really easy to install. Um, but yeah, I don't know for electrical wiring. We do it. We don't do a ton of it. But I try to adhesive heat shrink and properly do all my terminations and all that. Uh, so I'm pretty picky about the electrical wiring that comes through. But if I'm remembering correctly, you're in Texas. Uh, so yeah, I don't know. I don't really know any of the cruiser shops in Texas, and I should, um, but I don't. The dual battery stuff's pretty straightforward. Just as long as you get a heavy duty crimper and use adhesive lined heat shrink, um, it's pretty good. It's pretty good to do, uh, and they're pretty straightforward. Making all the lines come out clean with the routing can be tricky, but yeah, that's all I can think of. Did you get your exhaust in yet? I've been meaning to ask or meaning to shoot you an email, uh, and keep forgetting. It's funny. I uh, I actually like the cold. I absolutely hate the heat. Um, Virginia gets too hot for me. I was much happier when we were living in Boston, and it got up into the 70s, maybe 80s in the summer. I'm happiest when it's like 60 degrees and below. Um, so yeah, I hate the heat. Although Arizona's a dry heat, so it's not terrible. Um, and yeah, let me know how the curious. We most of the installs we've done have been in the shop, so we haven't had a lot of outside people um, installing them. So I'd just be curious to see how it goes, and if you have any questions, just give us a holler. Um, yeah, my moving plan is moving to South America, uh, but that's not until retirement, which I still have a long ways to go. I can't imagine you guys don't have good cruiser mechanics in Arizona. Isn't Tools R Us from Mud? Isn't he in Arizona somewhere? For some reason, I felt like he was in Arizona, and I've heard good things about him. I wouldn't mind going back to Arizona to visit. My retirement plan currently is Peru. Uh, open up a dog orphanage and live in Peru, work on Toyotas, and have a dog orphanage, and it'll be awesome. And yeah, definitely send me pictures when you get the exhaust in. Always looking to see how people's installs go. Although if things settle down politically, I wouldn't mind living in Nicaragua either. It was really nice there. I also have to learn Spanish before I move. I've yet to make it as far south as Chile. We've got a friend that's living in Santiago right now, and we keep threatening to go visit him, but we haven't made it down. I loved Cusco. Um, Granted, I haven't been in like 10 years, uh, but it was amazing. Super awesome climate, great scenery, great people, and it was cheap. Yeah, we fell in love with Peru. Although Guatemala and Antigua, I could see living there as well. And that's my favorite coffee is Guatemalan from outside of Antigua. Yeah, I haven't been to Brazil either. It's on the very long list of countries to visit, but we haven't made it down. And then I have to learn Portuguese, um, which I don't think I can do. But I guess in Brazil, you got they got the Bandeirante 40 series longer than we did, so I guess they have their upsides there. Uh, Guatemalan, I usually the only way you can find it around here is dark roast. I prefer it more of a medium roast, um, but all the stores around here seem to sell it as dark roast. Uh, we've got a customer that owns a coffee roasting place outside of town here. He brought me some Panamanian, and I'd never had coffee from Panama before. It was really good. Oh, I'm jealous of you being a coffee roaster. Um, yeah, we we don't have an easily accessible source for fresh coffee here. Um, which is funny. The house brand organic Guatemalan coffee at one of the grocery stores is actually really close to the stuff we got when we were in Guatemala. So it's a good substitute. But whenever we have friends go down, I have them bring me back bags of beans. Sorry, my wife's trying to call me, so I'm gonna text her back real quick. We had some guys that lived here in town that were doing a small scale roastery. I'm not really sure what you call the place where coffee is roasted. Uh, and they had traveled all around, like, Guatemala and Peru and Colombia. and they were doing really nice stuff. I was really disappointed. The coffee we got when we were in Colombia was not nearly as good as I thought it was going to be. Everything seemed to be like 7-Eleven coffee down there. It wasn't great. Costa Rica had really good coffee too. I like the campfire taste of it. Yeah, anytime we drain the coolant on a 100 series, we replace the heater teas. We keep a big bag of them in stock. They get done with every timing belt service we do. But if for any reason we have to drain the coolant, we do the heater teas while it's low, unless we've got record that we just did them. Because yeah, they just crumble in your hands when you take them apart. And they're not bad to change, but it's not something I'd want to change on the side of the road. It's funny when I can't find Guatemalan easily. My second choice is usually Colombian, but that's, I guess, because nobody around here has good Peru or Costa Rica. I brought some back from Nicaragua when we went in the spring, and it was good also. It was funny. It wasn't great when you were there, but the beans we bought back were good. I don't mind Colombian. But yeah, most of the time I go Guatemalan. And according to coffee people, I butcher it anyway. I cold brew it and leave it in the fridge all week. Um, I can't stand hot coffee. So if I make it hot, I have to ice it and then it's watered down. So I usually end up just cold brewing a batch and using it all week. We had one of our friends brought me some coffee back. I think it was from Ecuador, and it tasted exactly like mocha. It was like coffee and chocolate, and it wasn't like chocolate notes. It was chocolate. It was some of the best coffee I've ever had. Um, but I didn't save the bag, so I have no idea what it was. And of course, it was written in Spanish, so I don't know there either. But that was the absolute best coffee I've ever had. Was that Ecuadorian? Yeah, roadside repairs are never fun. Awesome. I will keep an eye out. Um, yeah, when we lived in Boston, we had this like really terrible 80s Tercel that I paid $100 for. And I usually drove it everywhere. But for some reason, my wife took it one day. Uh, and she was going down the highway and the brake lines blew out. So me and my boss jumped in a jumped in a truck to go rescue her. And of course got there and it's broken brake line. And they were so bad I couldn't splice it. Ended up having to go from the master cylinder, all the way to the back drum, on the side of the road in the dark, bleeding the system out. I tell my wife, hey, give me one more pump to make sure we're good on bleeding. She hits it one more time, and the other brake line blows out on the passenger side. I went through like a whole 25-foot coil of brake line on the side of the road. It was not a good day. And thanks for the knowledge. Hopefully, folks find it useful. Uh, You know, I learned everything, from reading I Hate Mud and the old Land Cruiser mailing list, uh, and stuff like that. And I'm terrible about getting online and actually checking the forums and responding to questions and things on the forums. But we're already doing the work anyway, so it's easy to do videos while we're doing repairs. And at least help folks out that way. Uh, Trying to improve the videos a little bit with each one. I know my video skills aren't great, uh, but they're fun to make, and hopefully they're helpful to folks. So we'll keep on doing them. And the cruiser chats are fun too, even though they seem to stray from cruiser content towards the end and head into travel or coffee. Um, but yeah, I think that's awesome too. It's cool to see what other folks out there are doing. Yeah, my plan was to drive the Tercel back to the shop with no brakes, and just use the parking brake. But my wife did not like that idea at all, so I had to do them on the side of the road. It is awesome that cruiser people and travel tend to go together. Um, Growing up, I never thought that I would travel. We drove like one or two states over to go wheeling, but that was it. But when we were trying to find out where to go for our honeymoon, we picked Peru, and we enjoyed it so much. We've made it a rule that we go to one new country a year. So this year was Nicaragua. I'm not sure what next year is going to be. Kind of right now, it's looking like maybe like an Iceland, Scotland thing. Although I'm kind of leaning towards Portugal for some reason. Uh, yeah, and I'd love to hit South Asia, but that's a long ways away. Minimum mods I recommend for Overland. I don't know that there is a minimum of mods that you need to enjoy going overland. You know, Pack some tools, pack camping gear, tow straps, recovery stuff, and go have fun. Uh, learn the truck, and progress from there. We get a bunch of people that come in and just throw a whole bunch of money and mods at a truck, and then it's all built, but they don't have the experience of wheeling it, so they can't really enjoy it. Uh, like if you start out with a stockish truck and work your way up, I think the progression's better. Um, and a stock Land Cruiser is really capable. Slightly bigger tires, maybe some stiffer springs. Um, I don't see the need for a ton of armor for straight overlanding. Unless you're going to do a lot of rocks or wooded trails. Uh, Tim, our new office manager, would be the real guy to answer that question because he actually does off-road driving training and overlanding stuff. and he has many, many opinions on these things. The way I see it, I have a Subaru Forester and a Titanium Spork, so I'm ready for overlanding. Throw my tent and sleeping bag in the back, and I'm good to go. But yeah, if you have specific questions, shoot Tim at the shop an email, and he can answer everything way better than I can. And as far as I know, no Portuguese in the ancestry. Although who knows? I'm a mutt, but mostly German, Hungarian, and Irish, and I think French Canadian. Although I don't know that that's actually an ethnicity, or not ethnicity, but yeah, you guys know what I mean. Oh yeah, fire extinguisher is very important. It is not fun trying to put out roadside fires. My 4Runner caught fire driving home from G-Smitter in Tennessee one year, and it was not fun putting that out on the side of the road. So yeah, the minimum mod for overlanding: fire extinguisher. No problem. We have them all over the shop. Because we're welding, grinding, all over the place with nasty, greasy, oily stuff. I can't tell you how many times I've caught myself on fire at work. And you never remember stop, drop, and roll when you're the one that's on fire. Oh. So yeah, hopefully the later time slot was easier for folks to join in. I guess it didn't send out a notification that I changed it. My dad called right before it was time to go on, and I was like, hey, you gotta make it quick. I got live chat coming up, and he was like, it was supposed to be at 5, and he didn't realize that I'd changed it. So hopefully, folks figure that part out. It was much nicer on my end being able to come home and get a shower and hang out here rather than doing it at the shop dirty. Yeah, burns are not fun. I can't feel the end of most of my left fingers from burning them. Which is real handy when I need to take things out of the oven now, because I don't need an oven mitt because I can't feel them. Awesome. Yeah. I'm liking the later time slot better. I didn't do it initially because all I had here at the house was a Chromebook, and it wasn't fast enough to actually stream from. So with the back to school sales, I bought a laptop for here at home, and it'll make it nicer that I can actually edit video here at the house instead of having to do them at the shop, because I hate sticking around at the shop while it edits and renders and all that jazz. Cool. Yeah, I should jump off of here as well. I don't know how my dogs know what time it is, but they get dinner at 7 o'clock, and they're both staring at me that they know it's 7. So yeah, I'll catch you guys next week, and unless we lose power from the hurricane that's supposed to come up the East Coast. But I'm guessing that we're far enough inland that it won't get us. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. If you haven't, subscribe below. And I'll catch you guys next week. Thanks.